We just got 2 more minutes, Brother Shankara.
Thank you for letting me know, dear.
Sure, I will. I'll let you know.
Namaste and a most gracious good evening.
Good evening and namaste.
Good evening, Jeff.
Good to see all of y'all.
All y'all, yeah.
Yeah, I had one of those coincidences that's not coincidence, but the exact thing that I was trying to describe to you Saturday in class, I saw a year-old talk of Swami Yogatmananda talking about exactly that very same thing this morning. And it took me a second and I realized he's describing the exact same thing I was describing. And it basically was the exact same conclusion. I was like, wow, that's really, it's like I've grown to expect things like that from, where, like I said, I don't put any limitations on how the guru teaches or by what means it comes by. But sometimes it's just so obvious that in a way it kind of makes your day because you're just, it's happening.
It's gratifying and fun. Yes, those synchronicities, as Jerry Brenner calls them, are very, very powerful in our lives.
7:30 p.m. right now, Brother Shankara.
Okay. Oh, oh, oh. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Gunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvina Ajitamastu Ma Vidvisha Vahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om, may the divine being look over us lovingly as a mother and father. May the divine being support and nourish us as a mother and father. May we have the strength and skill to study together the art of spirituality. May no misunderstandings arise amongst us. Om, peace, peace. Peace be unto thee, unto us, and to all your beloved beings everywhere. Dear one, make it so. So, good evening, everyone, and welcome to our Tuesday evening reading and discussion of the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. A work unique in the scriptural traditions of the world, in that it was taken down by a transcriber, Mahendranath Gupta M. And within just a few years after the master's death, it was published with the master's active collaboration as a book of instruction and invitation for us. And very deliberately done. So this is what we've been left with. There's nothing to compare it with in all of the world's scriptures. So with that, and if you'd like to discuss a particular idea, let's not discuss it as part of the class. If you have a question about that, please contact me directly. All right, Hyma dear. Hyma Naidu is our beloved reader. She'll tell us where we are and where we are starting.
Thank you, Brother Shankara. Namaste and good evening, everyone. We are on page 156 on PDF, and book may be 160 somewhere in that range. It's compassion and attachment is the topic we're going to talk now. Okay, Master said, remember that Daya, compassion, and Maya, attachment, are two different things. Attachment means the feeling of minus toward one's relatives. It is the love one feels for one's parents, one's brother, one's sister, one's wife, and children. Compassion is the love one feels for all beings of the world. It is an attitude of equality. If you see anywhere an instance of compassion, as in Vidyasagar, know that it is due to the grace of God. Through compassion, one serves all beings. Maya also comes from God. Through Maya, God makes one serve one's relatives. But one thing should be remembered. Maya keeps us in ignorance and entangles us in the world, whereas Daya makes our hearts pure and gradually unties our bonds. God cannot be realized without purity of heart. One receives the grace of God by subduing the passions, lust, anger, and greed. Then one sees God. I tried many things in order to conquer lust. When I was 10 or 11 years old and lived at Kamarpakur, I first experienced samadhi. As I was passing through a paddy field, I saw something and was overwhelmed. There are certain characteristics of God vision. One sees light, feels joy, and experiences the upsurge of a great current in one's chest, like the bursting of a rocket. The next day, Baburam and Ram Dayal returned to Calcutta. M spent the day and the night with the master. December 1882. It was afternoon. The master was sitting in his room at Dakshineshwar with M and one or two other devotees. Several Marwari devotees arrived and saluted the master. They requested Sri Ramakrishna to give them spiritual instruction. He smiled. Master, to the Marwari devotees, you see, the feeling of I and mine is the result of ignorance. But to say, O God, thou art the doer, all these belong to thee, is the sign of knowledge. How can you say such a thing as mine? The superintendent of the garden says, this is my garden. But if he is dismissed because of some misconduct, then he does not have the courage to take away even such a worthless thing as his mango woodbox. Anger and lust cannot be destroyed. Turn them toward God. If you must feel desire and temptation, then desire to realize God, feel tempted by Him. Discriminate and turn the passions away from worldly objects. When the elephant is about to devour a plantain tree in someone's garden, the Mahat strikes it with his iron-tipped goad. You are merchants. You know how to improve your business gradually. Some of you start with a castor oil factory. After making some money at that, you open a cloth shop. In the same way, one makes progress toward God. It may be that you go into solitude now and then and devote more time to prayer. But you must remember that nothing can be achieved except in its proper time. Some persons must pass through many experiences and perform many worldly duties before they can turn their attention to God. So they have to wait a long time. If an abscess is lanced before it is soft, the result is not good. The surgeon makes the opening when it is soft and has come to a head. Once a child said to its mother, "Mother, I'm going to sleep now. Please wake me up when I feel the call of nature." "My child," said the mother, "when it is time for that, you will wake up yourself. I shall not have to wake you." The Marwari devotees generally brought offerings of fruit, candy, and other sweets for the master. But Sri Ramakrishna could hardly eat them. He would say, "They earned their money by falsehood. I can't eat their offerings." He said to the Marwaris, "You see, one can't strictly adhere to truth in business. There are ups and downs in business." Nanak once said, "I was about to eat the food of unholy people when I found it stained with blood." A man should offer only pure things to holy men. He shouldn't give them food earned by dishonest means. God is realized by following the path of truth. One should always chant his name, even while one is performing one's duties. The mind should be left with God. Suppose I have a carbuncle on my back. I perform my duties, but the mind is drawn to the carbuncle. It's good to repeat the name of Rama. The same Rama who was the son of King Dasharatha has created this world. Again, as spirit, he pervades all beings. He is very near us. He is both within and without. That's the end of that particular topic. Brother Shankara, any comments, purport, or any comments from the panel of our holy company?
I don't think there's anything to add
Sure.
to what was said. It was so beautifully put, so beautifully stated.
That's right.
Anything else from anyone? Anyone that would like to make a comment from their own wisdom or experience? Or anything that they'd like to raise as a question or concern? Please feel free. All right, dears. We'll just read.
Okay. The next topic is the Master and Vijay Goswami. Thursday, December 14th, 1882. It was afternoon. Sri Ramakrishna was sitting on his bed after a short noonday rest. Vijay, Balaram, M, and a few other devotees were sitting on the floor with their faces toward the Master. They could see the sacred river Ganges through the door. Since it was winter, all were wrapped up in warm clothes. Vijay had been suffering from colic and had brought some medicine with him. Vijay, the Brahmo preacher, was a paid preacher in the Sadharan Brahmo Samaj, but there were many things about which he could not agree with the Samaj authorities. He came from a very noble family of Bengal, noted for its piety and other spiritual qualities. Advaita Goswami, one of his remote ancestors, had been an intimate companion of Sri Chaitanya. Thus, the blood of a great lover of God flowed in Vijay's veins. As an adherent of the Brahmo Samaj, Vijay no doubt meditated on the formless Brahman, but his innate love of God, inherited from his distinguished ancestors, had merely been waiting for the proper time to manifest itself in all its sweetness. Thus, Vijay was irresistibly attracted by the God intoxicated state of Sri Ramakrishna and often sought his company. He would listen to the master's words with great respect, and they would dance together in an ecstasy of divine love. It was a weekday. Generally, devotees came to the master in large numbers on Sundays. Hence, those who wanted to have intimate talks with him visited him on weekdays. Tendencies from previous births. That's the small subtopic. A boy named Vishnu living in Aryadaha had recently committed suicide by cutting his throat with a razor. The talk turned to him. Master, I felt very badly when I heard of the boy's passing away. He was a pupil in a school and he used to come here. He would often say to me that he couldn't enjoy worldly life. He had lived with some relatives in the western provinces and at that time used to meditate in solitude in the meadows, hills, and forests. He told me he had visions of many divine forms. Perhaps this was his last birth. He must have finished most of his duties in his previous birth. The little that had been left undone was perhaps finished in this one. One must admit the existence of tendencies inherited from previous births. There is a story about a man who practiced the Seva sadhana. He worshipped the Divine Mother in a deep forest. First, he saw many terrible visions. Finally, a tiger attacked and killed him. Another man, happening to pass and seeing the approach of the tiger, had climbed a tree. Afterwards, he got down and found all the arrangements for worship at hand. He performed some purifying ceremonies and seated himself on the corpse. No sooner had he done a little japa than the Divine Mother appeared before him and said, "My child, I am very much pleased with you. Accept a boon from me." He bowed low at the lotus feet of the goddess and said, "May I ask you one question, Mother?" "I'm speechless with amazement at your action." The other man worked so hard to get the ingredients for your worship and tried to propitiate you for such a long time, but you didn't condescend to show him your favor. And I, who don't know anything of worship, who have done nothing, who have neither devotion, nor knowledge, nor love, and who haven't practiced any austerities, am receiving so much of your grace. The Divine Mother said with a laugh, "My child, you don't remember your previous births. For many births, you tried to propitiate me through austerities. As a result of those austerities, all these things have come to hand. And you've been blessed with my vision. Now ask me your boon." That was the end of that topic. Brother Shankara, any comments on this?
Well, it just again goes to prove
Yes.
that the sincerity, first of all, things happen at the right time. There's no reason to feel anxious or a sense of urgency. Just go along, maintain your interest, do your practices as you've learned them or been given them by a teacher, and everything will happen at the right time. That sincerity and depth of determination is what results in progress. So, anything else from anyone? All right, read on here.
Okay, next a small topic. It's a suicide after the vision of God. A devotee asks, I am frightened to hear of the suicide. Master says, suicide is a heinous sin, undoubtedly. A man who kills himself must return again and again to this world and suffer its agony. But I don't call it suicide if a person leaves his body after having the vision of God. There's no harm in giving up one's body that way. After attaining knowledge, some people give up their bodies. After the gold image has been cast in the clay mold, you may either preserve the mold or break it. Many years ago, a young man of about 20 used to come to the temple garden from Baranagar. His name was Gopal Sen. In my presence, he used to experience such intense ecstasy that Hirde had to support him for fear he might fall to the ground and break his limbs. That young man touched my feet one day and said, Sir, I shall not be able to see you anymore. Let me bid you goodbye. A few days later, I learned that he had given up his body. 4 classes of men. It is said that there are 4 classes of human beings: the bound, those aspiring after liberation, the liberated, and the ever perfect. Next, the parable of the fish and the net. This world is like a fishing net. Men are the fish, and God, whose Maya has created this world, is the fisherman. When the fish are entangled in the net, some of them try to tear through its meshes in order to get their liberation. They are like the men striving after liberation, but by no means all of them escape. Only a few jump out of the net with a loud splash, and then people say, there goes a big one. In like manner, 3 or 4 men attain liberation. Again, some fish are so careful by nature, and they are never caught in the net. Some beings of the ever perfect class, like Narada, are never entangled in the meshes of worldliness. Most of the fish are trapped, but they are not conscious of the net and of their imminent death. No sooner are they entangled than they run headlong, net and all, trying to hide themselves in the mud. They don't make the least effort to get free. On the contrary, they go deeper and deeper into the mud. These fish are like the bound men. They are still inside the net, but they think they are quite safe there. A bound creature is immersed in worldliness, in women and gold, having gone deep into the mire of degradation. But still he believes he is quite happy and secure. The liberated and the seekers after liberation look on the world as a deep well. They do not enjoy it. Therefore, after the attainment of knowledge, the realization of God, some give up their bodies, but such a thing is rare indeed. Next, worldly minded forget their lessons. The bound creatures entangled in worldliness will not come to their senses at all. They suffer so much misery and agony. They face so many dangers, and yet they will not wake up. The camel loves to eat thorny bushes. The more it eats the thorns, the more the blood gushes from its mouth. Still, it must eat thorny plants and will never give them up. The man of worldly nature suffers so much sorrow and affliction, but he forgets it all in a few days and begins his old life over again. Suppose a man has lost his wife or she has turned unfaithful. Lo, he marries again. Or take the instance of a mother. Her son dies and she suffers bitter grief. But after a few days, she forgets all about it. The mother, so overwhelmed with sorrow a few days before, now attends to her toilet and puts on her jewelry. A father becomes bankrupt through the marriage of his daughters. Yet he goes on having children year after year. People are ruined by litigation, yet they go to court all the same. There are men who cannot feed the children they have, who cannot clothe them or provide decent shelter for them. Yet they have more children every year. Again, the worldly man is like a snake trying to swallow a mole. The snake can neither swallow the mole nor give it up. The bound soul may have realized that there is no substance to the world, that the world is like a hog plum, only stone and skin, but still he cannot give it up and turns his mind to God. I once met a relative of Keshav Sen, 50 years old. He was playing cards, as if the time had not yet come for him to think of God. There is another characteristic of the bound soul. If you remove him from his worldly surroundings to a spiritual environment, he will pine away. The worm that grows in filth feels very happy there. It thrives in filth. It will die if you put it in a pot of rice. All remained silent. Any comments, Brother Shankara?
Well, I think that we'll all remain silent.
Yes, very clear.
Very clear, I mean, we're just being reminded over and over what it is it takes to stay focused and to move forward. And we can listen or not as we please. No harm, no foul, as long as you're not harming anyone else. Any comments or questions from anyone else? Well, they seem to be into a period of fairly clear sailing here this evening.
Okay. Next topic is small topic. It's a bondage removed by strong renunciation. Vijay asks, what must the bound soul's condition of mind be in order to achieve liberation? Master answers, he can free himself from attachment to women and gold if, by the grace of God, he cultivates a spirit of strong renunciation. What is the strong renunciation? One who has only a mild spirit of renunciation says, well, all will happen in the course of time. Let me now simply repeat the name of God. But a man possessed of a strong spirit of renunciation feels restless for God as the mother feels for her own child. A man of strong renunciation seeks nothing but God. He regards the world as a deep well and feels as if he were going to be drowned in it. He looks on his relatives as venomous snakes. He wants to fly away from them. And he does go away. He never thinks, let me first make some arrangement for my family, and then I shall think of God. He has great inward resolution. That's the end of that little topic, which is bondage removed by strong renunciation. Next is a parable of the two farmers. Any comments, Brother Shankara?
Just 1 minute.
Sure.
Swami Sri Ramakrishna once did it's still available from San Francisco. He did a 3-day retreat on this particular topic.
Mhm.
And if you ever want to dive deep into this and get all, I will say, all that the Ramakrishna lineage has to offer. I mean, Sri Ramakrishna was still in his prime at that time. This was probably 1997, something like that. He had come to Los Angeles, and we drove him up to San Francisco to the Olima retreat. And so just go to the San Francisco website or talk to the nuns in charge of the bookstore there and ask for a copy of Sri Dharananda's 3-day retreat that he delivered in the 1990s. And you will be very glad you did. I mean, I was there for the full 3 days and listened to all of it. I was one of the people who drove it. And it was spectacular. So I would say, he's taken everything that the master had to offer, and then from the scriptures, very well versed in the scriptures of other traditions. He rounded it all up, and it just flowed from him like the Ganges running down from the Himalaya. And it was something to witness. So anyway, that's my little commercial for Swami Sri Dharananda's 3-day retreat. Anything else from anyone? Okay. Read on here.
Sure. Next topic is, it's a parable of the two farmers. Let me tell you a story about strong renunciation. At one time, there was a drought in a certain part of the country. The farmers began to cut long channels to bring water to their fields. One farmer was stubbornly determined. He took a vow that he would not stop digging until the channel connected his field with the river. Set to work. The time came for his bath, and his wife sent their daughter to him with the oil. Father, said the girl, it's already late. Rub your body with oil and take your bath. Go away, thundered the farmer. I have too much to do now. It was past midday, and the farmer was still at work in his field. He didn't even think of his bath. Then his wife came and said, Why haven't you taken your bath? The food is getting cold. You overdo everything. You can finish the rest tomorrow or even today after dinner. The farmer scolded her furiously and ran at her, spade in hand, crying, What? Have you no nonsense? Have you no sense? There's no rain. The crops are dying. What will the children eat? You will all starve to death. I have taken a vow not to think of bath and food today before I bring water to my field. The wife saw his state of mind and ran away in fear. Through a whole day's back-breaking labor, the farmer managed by evening to connect his field with the river. Then he sat down and watched the water flowing into his field with a murmuring sound. His mind was filled with peace and joy. He went home, called his wife, and said to her, Now give me some oil and prepare me a smoke. With serene mind, he finished his bath and meal and retired to bed, where he snored to his heart's content. The determination he showed is an example of strong renunciation. Now there was another farmer who was also digging a channel to bring water to his field. His wife, too, came to the field and said to him, It's very late. Come home. It isn't necessary to overdo things. The farmer didn't protest much, but put aside his spade and said to his wife, Well, I'll go home since you asked me to. All laughed. That man never succeeded in irrigating his field. This is a case of mild renunciation. As without strong determination, the farmer cannot bring water to his field, so also without intense yearning, a man cannot realize God. To Vijay, why don't you come here now as frequently as before? Vijay said, Sir, I wish to very much, but I'm not free. I have accepted work in the Brahmo Samaj. That's the end of the parable story and the topic. Now we're going to go to any comments, Brother Shankara?
Well, yes, that
Great.
story about the farmer who would not let anything deter him
Mm,
from keeping his vow of doing the worthy thing. He was going to make sure that his field got watered, because otherwise the field would die and they would all be impoverished, perhaps even, as he said, starved to death. So he just said, I'll let nothing get in my way. Now, this is so important a parable for us,
yes.
because it's so easy for us to take the line of the second farmer and say, well, it doesn't all have to do before
That's right.
I take rest. And sometimes that's absolutely true. It's not as imperative. But when we're talking about God realization, this, as Sri Ramakrishna says, is an example of strong renunciation. And he uses the word yearning. That farmer yearned to have his field watered so that the crops would not die. Well, we can have that same yearning to, so to speak, water and fertilize our own inner field, so that the crop of love and attachment to the divine grows and doesn't wither away. Anything else from anyone?
I see the commitment and perseverance along faith and devotion. It's what we have to do with our practice.
Well, it always reminds me, these
Mhm.
always remind me of Swami Prabhupananda's 4 instructions for meditation. First, he tells us the truth. The chosen ideal is you yourself, no different. Learn to feel that living presence. Now that is a great admonition to turn away from that which is distracting you and learn to feel that living presence. Doesn't happen overnight. You don't go from one day
Mm-mm.
not feeling it to next day feeling it. But if you work at it, how to work at it? Well, that's his second, third, and fourth instruction. This second instruction is with patience. You're not going to dig a channel from the river to your field all at once. You must be patient so that you do it well, so that the sides don't cave in the minute the water rushes through to continue that metaphor. You have to be thoughtful and careful about how you do it. So patience. Third instruction, perseverance. You must not give up. You must not set what you're doing aside in order to oil yourself up and take your bath. In other words, and take your bath and have your meal. In other words, participate in the creature comforts until you've made sufficient progress on what you're doing. And the fourth instruction is perhaps the most important in the sense of sustaining it, and that is expectation. You can have every right to expect that if you do the first 3 instructions, you will achieve the goal. You will complete the channel and listen to that wonderful murmuring sound of the water running through the channel to water your field. I mean, this is poetry, this parable that we were given by the Master. There's much poetic imagery in it. So that's how I relate to these things when I hear them. Is to remember Swami Prabhupananda's 4 instructions for meditation. It's not an insuperable task. It's just something that you have to do every day, which is sometimes very difficult, but it's not insuperable. You must not allow yourself to be daunted or invited away by the blandishments of the world. Anything else from anyone?
You know, this is really the same issue that I was talking about Saturday and that Yogatmananda was talking about. And that, you know, when you get down to those issues are shrouded in a fear that in the way that Swami was putting it is because those touch on the desires that are basically underpinning us. I think that's like what Mother was talking about. As soon as you let go of those, you can leave, and but those desires are the kind of like the last thing that's holding us. And there's such a fear around them of messing with them because it threatens that body mind belief.
Oh,
And
yes.
and it it's kind of like almost like those desires are booby trapped. You lift up, you think you've got them all, and then you find out that you're still attached, and attachments that you didn't know you had.
Yep.
And then it's like, and then I'm like, well, how do I get over the paralysis? Because like he was quoting or talking about the Bodhichara Avatara, and and he was talking about when the Bodhisattva comes to this part to where now you've learned all this stuff and it's time to put this to implement it into the world. And it's like, and then, if we're forced to live this way and implement it in the world, we really have no choice but to recognize everyone as the divine and treat them as we would ourselves. And there's a fear in that, because then you're like, well, if I give up everything for everybody else, what about me? And it's that ego getting scared of, for its existence. And I don't know. And so I was like, well, how do you get over the paralysis that fear causes in order to step through it and implement it? And and the only thing I could come up with, because he didn't seem to answer it directly, but practice. And I think that's just part of the illusion that we have to face, is that fear, and walk through it.
And you used exactly the right words. Walk through it. You have to get up from being paralyzed, get up and take that one more step, and then one more step, and one more step, and one more step. And we all understand that sometimes it's not going to be easy, that it's going to be hard for us to be patient and persevering and abide in the expectation that if I do this, I will succeed. This is why it's so good to take instruction from these great souls, because their lives can cause you to believe that it can be done. There they stand.
It's like when you try to renounce that, like what it's talking about, you feel that ego go, well, what about me? I'm not going to exist if you give the farm away to everybody else, and it tries to cause a ruckus.
Well, notice that the first farmer chases that wife away, chases that scolding wife away. He chases that ego away and says, go away. I'm not going to stop until I've fulfilled my vow. So yes, we have to chase that away. We have to shake our spade at.
It's a very slow process, Brother Shankara. That one, the emotionally separating renunciation, is the hardest one. Once that is done, then slowly. I don't think Swami means that we have to give up everything, really. It's the emotional renunciation. Separating emotionally from everything in the world, but you still can live your life the way you are living.
Well,
you renunciate slowly things and everything.
Most of us have a life where we can't renounce everything.
That's right. That's what we
But
have to.
we have our duties, we have our responsibilities.
Yes, we have to
So
serve.
we just have to set our priorities.
That's right.
And you know,
Well, you know, this is an area of confusion for me too, because, you know, so I've been studying and trying to get the ego under control. And it seems, you know, it's so clever, and the more success you have, the more clever, you know, it's like the mother of invention to the ego to subvert things. And, you know, and I think, okay, well, you know, I'm gonna, you know, I got it now, you know, I'm not gonna talk, I'll kind of ask crazy stuff in class and talk too much. And then first thing I know, I'm doing it again. And despite all of my efforts as the doer to stop it, I cannot. And I think it must just be mother just put, like, spanking my nose into it until I finally realize I am not the doer. But you know, we get caught in that paradox. Well, am I responsible for my actions if I'm not the doer? And we're like, well, how do I relate this to this world of parent?
well,
You know,
you have plenty of instruction on these things. Bhagavan Das, just make them a reality for yourself. You know, there is no mystery about it. But you're right, there is this paradox. And one of the characteristics of the spiritual aspirant is the ability to hold two thoughts in mind at the same time. The truth with a capital T and the apparent reality with a small r. And as long as we're embodied, we're going to live with that small r reality. Now, how do we bring that under control? Through assertion again and again of the various forms of the truth that we're taught. And it is a moment to moment, hour to hour, day to day activity. It's not just on a cushion, you know, from 6 to 6:20 in the morning, and you know, the same thing in the evening. Well, that's better than nothing for sure. But and of course, avoid fearlessness, the inability to be daunted. Terribly important. Terribly important. Avoid this fearlessness. Doesn't mean you don't feel fear. As you said earlier, you walk through it. Of course, your ego's afraid of what's going to happen to it, because it can't be persuaded a priori that it will have a much better time. It will enjoy itself much more in fulfillment of the spiritual truth, even though you can look and see those people who are saintly, the eternal teachers like Yogatmananda, and see they're having a grand old time. And you can see it isn't their egoless. Their ego is just under complete control. So thanks for bringing all these things up.
You know, I saw him telling a story where somebody, I guess in an airport or something, had come up to him and asked him about his life, about being a monk, and said that, aren't you afraid that you've missed out on the joys of life? And he just kind of chuckled, and it's like, you're asking me if I've missed out on the joys of life? He said, like, look at me.
Yeah, exactly. Just look at me. Feel of me. Feel of me. Does it seem as if I'm deprived? No. it seems as if I am radiant. Not because I will it to be so, but because it is a natural consequence of what I have become. And always was, but it was like all of us covered up with ignorance. Even the saints, well, every saint has a past. Every sinner has a future. Anything else from anyone? All right, dear, please read up.
Okay. Next, small 3-line topic, attachment to woman creates bondage. Master, it's woman in gold that binds man and robs him of his freedom. It is woman that creates the need for gold. For woman, one man becomes the slave of another and so loses his freedom. Then he cannot act as he likes. There is a short story, few lines, story of Govindaji's priests. The priests in the temple of Govindaji at Jaipur were celibates at first. And at that time, they had fiery natures. Once the king of Jaipur sent for them, but they didn't obey him. They said to the messenger, "Ask the king to come to see us." After consultation, the king and his ministers arranged marriages for them. From then on, the king didn't have to send for them.
Uh-huh.
They would come to him of themselves and say, "Your Majesty, you have come with our blessings. We have come with our blessings. Here are the sacred flowers of the temple. Deign to accept them." They came to the palace, for now they always wanted money for one thing or another.
Yeah.
The building of a house, the rice-taking ceremony of their babies, or the rituals connected with the beginning of their children's education. That's the end of the story of Govindaji's priests.
Well, we see this as an absolute truth.
The family grows.
The king was very smart. He didn't argue with them or punish them. Hey, he did punish them, but he did it by arranging their marriages.
And,
Suddenly, he increased the ego content of their lives. Now they had to come to him and ask for money. Okay, dear.
Next, the story of 1200 Nedas. I think Neda means a wealthy guardian in the English meaning, Brother Shankara. Do you have any other meaning for that? There is the story of the 1200 Nedas and 1300 Neddies.
I don't know that term at all. N-E-D-A.
It says,
It's not an English word.
yeah, 1200. Nedas in English meaning in Google is wealthy guardian. That's what it says. And Neddy is a female.
Right.
Hyma,
Yeah.
in the
yeah.
book, there's a footnote for
Okay.
that word, and it says literally shaven-headed. Among the Vaishnava devotees, those who renounce the world shave their heads.
Oh, yes. Okay. Gotcha. That's good. I'm glad because the Google only gives the English meaning. It didn't have that.
It means those who have renounced their hair.
Yeah.
My hair renounced me, so I don't know if that counts.
That's right. Okay. Virabhadra, the son of Nityananda Goswami, had 1300 shaven-headed disciples. There you go. The next line is shaven-headed disciples. They attained great spiritual powers that alarmed their teacher. My disciples have acquired great spiritual powers, thought Virabhadra. Whatever they say to people will come to pass. Wherever they go, they may create alarming situations. For people offending them unwittingly will come to grief. Thinking thus, Virabhadra one day called them to him and said, "See me after performing your daily devotions on the bank of the Ganges." These disciples had such a high spiritual nature that while meditating, they would go into samadhi and be unaware of the river water flowing over their heads during the flood tide. Then the ebb tide would come and still they would remain absorbed in meditation. Now, 100 of these disciples had anticipated what their teacher would ask of them. Lest they should have to disobey his injunctions, they had quickly disappeared from the place before he summoned them. So they did not go to Virabhadra with the others. The remaining 1,200 disciples went to the teacher after finishing their meditation. Virabhadra said to them, "These 1,300 nuns will serve you. I ask you to marry them." "As you please, revered sir," they said. "But 100 of us have gone away." Thenceforth, each of these 1,200 disciples had a wife. Consequently, they all lost their spiritual power. Their austerities did not have their original fire. The company of women robbed them of their spirituality because it destroyed their freedom. That's the end of that story of 1,200 Nedas. And the time also is 8:30 p.m., Brother Shankara.
Okay.
Any comments on
Well,
this?
let's not misunderstand.
Yeah,
There's something wrong with women.
that's right.
It's the entanglement
That's right. The
that
lust.
is the impediment, not the woman. It is the splitting of your attention
Mhm.
between one thing and another.
That's right.
So it's 8:30, and
Mhm.
we'll continue this next week.
Sure.
It's so delightful. Anything else from anyone before we close? All right, dears. Well, so good you were with us. Jai Shri Guru Maharaj Ji Ki Jai. Durga, Durga, Durga. May we be safe. May we be healthy. May we be cheerful. May we have peace of mind. May we go forward in the knowledge that the beings introduced to us, the being introduced to us as the Mother, Father, Divine Being, with the prayer that opens this session, holds us in a loving and protective embrace. So Jai Shri Guru Maharaj Ji Ki Jai. May we be well and in bright spirits until tomorrow night, when we'll take up the book Realizing God. Saturday, there will be no class because we'll have Swami Yogatmananda with us. He'll be with us for Saturday and Sunday. And so we'll take this up again next week. We will meet Howard tomorrow evening. Much love to you all. Hope to speak with you anytime you care to call or send me an email.
See you all tomorrow.
All right. Yes. Takes me a minute to find my way out of here.
We don't mind you sticking around for an extra minute or two.
Thank you, dear. I just
I think he's gone. Just us now.
I saw a message that says Traguna is the host now.
Oh,
So congratulations, Traguna.
we have a new and different meeting now. Well, sometimes it's like You know, you feel like if the class went for 2 days, you would still be talking like everybody would, you know. I think about, when it talks about when it hits your fifth chakra, then all you want to do is talk about God. It's like I'm kind of isolated in that respect, that there's no one else here to talk to about that. So it's like, and so it's like, all day long you're just like, and so you get around other people and you're like, oh.
Well, thank goodness for Zoom, right?
Well, it is really amazing that we are living in a time to where I could just go right online and see hundreds of hours of my guru's talks, and all the swamis, well, not all, but I mean there's swamis going back to the 70s on video that you can see in the order. It's like, it's pretty amazing that we have access to that, and it's amazing that how much of it can be transmitted through talks and books and things. And I'm sure we already have the benefit of the guru acting, on us before we ever started reading those books and listening to those swamis talk. But, it is transmissible, at least with their help, which is amazing, really, that I can go back and listen to all these different swamis in the order and hear all their different individual, um, you know, perspectives and, aspects of the master. So it is amazing.
Well, you got to think about the fact that there is power in just looking at a photograph.
Yeah,
And then, so why wouldn't it apply to videos also?
I know. And see, and that's my thing. I think that, that our karma and there's some scars or whatever that has drug us to this point. It's almost like I think of like a bullseye, and the avatar is at the center of the bullseye, and we're getting through successive lives, or what we perceive as time, getting closer and closer to the center of the bullseye being the avatar. Because now it's literally like, say, the gurus are manifesting in our life. We can see physical pictures of the avatar. We know who it is. We know his name. We can say it. We have the mantras. And so, it's like we're practically already there.
We are blessed, that's for sure. Well, I'm going to say good night to everyone.
All right, and
Good night.